podcast of Good News. We are your hosts, Lauren
and Grace, and we're here to bring you everyday ideas for learning about and living out the way of Jesus in your family.
So, Grace, you know when May becomes a whirlwind of everything for the kids that you can lose yourself?
Absolutely. How can we stay rooted?
I mean, I hope in the next 30 minutes we figure it out.
Let's try.
Let's
try. Yeah, for sure.
First of all, why is May like this? Like, why does May do this to us and then also decide to plunk Mother's Day right in the middle of itself?
Right? Because it's like, oh, here, yeah, you're not doing enough. So here, plan a day for yourself too. I think that's why they do put Mother's Day there, so that we feel better about ourselves.
It forces it, right? It forces a day of, hang on a second, Mom's doing all the things.
Right. Let's focus on Mom. But, I mean, I would say the first thing that people need to do, we talked a little bit before about knowing who your kids are, right? Well, you need to know who you are too, and not let the pressures of the world around you kind of force you into being somebody that you're not.
Yep.
Right? So personally, I start off the year strong. Come August, I am like so ready to send my kids back to school. And so I make sure that I, have the cutest back to school gifts for the teachers. I do a whole Pinterest search and try to find different clever things to do. And so I spend a lot of time doing all that at the beginning of the year. I'll sign up to be a room parent, but I am very honest when I sign up and I say, I am great until about November. like you get me at my best for like the fall fair and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that's where I'm the best. And then later on in the year, it's kind of hit or miss, but I'm all in at the beginning. And so even some of my kids have brought gifts to their teachers at the beginning of the school year and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. And they're like, yeah, I just want to warn you that my mom doesn't do anything in May.
Yes. Know thyself.
So therefore I'm like setting up that expectation of like, yeah, when teacher appreciation rolls around, which I love the fact that we're appreciating our teachers. But honestly, I can't follow that schedule of bring this in this day and this in this day and all of that stuff. Like I can't do it. I almost feel like we should just tell the kids, bring $1 every day. Every kid just bring $1 every day and give it to your teacher. And by the end of the week, the teacher has like $100.
Just a pile of cash.
Hey,
That's great.
So yeah, what about you in May?
So yeah, it just feels like everything sneaks up on you. I've heard August referred to as Mom's New Year before, that so many people treat January as the new year, goal setting, get some new routines started, and that for a lot of moms, and I think parents in general, August is more of that feeling of the new year. And you do feel like you've got goals, you're getting back into a routine. I can see why if you have kids in your house, that does feel a little bit more like the start of the year. And I think it's so wise to figure out what your capacity is. I mean, in church work, when, someone who's a priest tells you, don't schedule that for Holy Week. Don't schedule that for, the time right before Christmas. To know your own schedule and to know your own bandwidth at different times of the year is really wise. And then to lean into it. Like you said, if you didn't do the, cute teacher gifts at the beginning of the year, they're not going to happen at the end of the year. So to do them, it makes sense to do it when it makes the most sense for you. And I think as a former teacher, I would love to have stuff spread out a little bit more than just that week. That's one thing I like about my kids' school is that they do the traditional teacher appreciation week where the kids bring in different things, but they spread out their school-wide teacher appreciation throughout the year. So the stuff like the Parents Club sponsors, they'll have like a coffee truck, kind of like a food truck, but just coffee and pastries come on a day that they have professional development in November. And it's like, here's part of our appreciation. So rather than concentrate everything into that one week, they do try to spread some things out, which I think is really wise when you think through, okay, what does our actual capacity look like? How do we plan based on that?
Right. And we don't want everybody to go back and say, oh, well, the podcast I listen to says I don't have to do Teacher Appreciation Week, so no one's getting anything this year. Well, I mean, if you can, maybe you are the kind of person that brings you joy, right? That brings you life, and then you can kind of really flourish with this. Like, okay, what do I have to do and how do I do it? I'm a big scheduler. I like to have things scheduled. And so I don't like all the random things that pop up. I like to kind of know so that way I can plan for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, even when you plan for everything, you still have like everybody has an end of year thing, whether
Right.
they're graduating or not. And when they're graduating, oh my goodness, it's just
So many
crazy.
things.
Yeah, if you have more than one child, it just really compounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think it compounds simply. It's exponential
It is.
for sure. And so then you have kids in different activities and you don't want to say no, but maybe you do. Maybe you need to learn what things you need to say no about
Mm-hmm.
and what things you can do.
Right. Prioritize things. We can't just give everything the same level of importance in our lives and in our kids' lives, and have open conversations with your kids about what they prioritize. Because sometimes your kids will surprise you with something that you're thinking, oh, they absolutely have to do this. They will be heartbroken if we miss such and such. And you mention it to them and they shrug like, yeah, I don't really care if we go to that. So you don't know until you have the conversation about it. And really, when you're thinking about the long game here and these kids were preparing for adulthood, preparing them now to understand we don't have to do every single thing. We can set our own priorities. We can think through, okay, where do we have other people depending on us? Where do we feel like our hearts really are? Where do we feel drawn? Just teaching them that skill set of not every single activity having the same level of importance, and then making your plans based on that. The sooner they can start to understand that, the better off they are as adults, because we burn ourselves out when we don't have that skill set yet.
Right. For sure. For sure. And then personally, I always find I function better when I pray. When I am rooted in prayer, I function better. But when you're going and going and going, sometimes it's hard as a mom, well, in May, but all the time, really, to fit in, the hour of prayer that you might have had when you were younger, or that you might always feel like, oh, that's what prayer should be. I should be sitting down and have my Bible and have my journal and have this whole prayer time, which is important, right? Don't get me wrong. If you can do that, that's important. But there's also lots of other ways to pray. And when we pray, I feel like we're staying rooted in God and in Christ and in the scriptures that then we're able to share out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got to fill your own cup before you start trying to fill everybody else's. And I think it's a season of life thing, right? We have spans of time where we can sit down with our Bible and our journal and light a candle and put some classical music on, and just have this really rich time. You have seasons where you can do that. May, for me, tends not to be that season.
Right.
And I think the trap we fall into is we get this sort of all or nothing mentality where if I don't have time for that to be my prayer time, then I just lose it entirely. And so something I've started doing in really busy seasons, a sort of a mantra I have for myself is 3 things. And I will tell myself in the middle of the day when everything feels crazy, I'll stop and tell myself, okay, 3 things. And my 3 things are connect with God, connect with each kid. Thankfully, I only have 2. That's probably harder for Grace. Connect with each kid and drink water. And
drink water.
It's hilarious that we have
That's so
seasons of
funny.
life where we have to remind ourselves to drink water, but that's the reality of
Well,
what
if we're
doing
going to
here.
stay rooted, right? If we're using this image of a tree,
Right, we
then
gotta be well
need
watered.
water. We need water.
Yes.
Food and water. Yes. Like I always, food, water, and sleep. If you have those, like we're as simple as plants, right?
It's true.
We need food, water, and sleep. Sunshine, like give us those things.
It's
And
true.
then we do better.
So I'll think about my 3 things and, connect with God, connect with each kid, and then just making sure I'm drinking water throughout the day. And sometimes you can combine those. My connecting with God, as much as I would like for it to be, the 30 minutes of time in scripture and, prayer, it's not that in May. A lot of times I brought it with me. My favorite devotional is Jesus Calling, one that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. It's a devotional for every day of the year, and they are short. They're pulled from scripture. Interestingly, they're written in the first person where like Jesus is talking to you, like I know you really well,
yeah.
which is kind of a different take on it, but they're all really short, easy to read at any point in your day. And so a lot of times in May, that is my connect with God. I have just enough time and bandwidth to read what the Jesus calling for the day is. And sometimes I read the one for the wrong day because I'm not sure what the date is when I sit down
Right.
to read, but it's fine. I have a friend who in busy seasons, she reads a psalm every day. And she said, sometimes it's the same psalm. I might read the same psalm every single day. That's what I have the time and bandwidth to do. And it's something, it's better than just letting it fall away because I didn't have the time to sit down and do the full, director's cut of what I want my prayer time to look like. You can also combine these things. You can combine connect with God and connect with each kid by sitting down with each kid and saying, let's say a prayer together. Or if you have little kids you're reading stories to, let's read a story out of one of our storybook Bibles together. And so you can, combine things and drink water while you're doing it. Then you're hitting all three.
We have our friends who do bedtime chapel.
Yes.
Right. So there's another podcast for you, that it's bedtime chapel. So you can just press play and they lead your family prayer for the evening. And
you're doing
just
bedtime every day anyway, so you might as well.
Right. So you can just press play and do that. I love the liturgical patterns that we have within the church and that we have this daily office, right? We have these daily prayers. So we have morning prayer, we have noon prayer, we have evening prayer, we have a compline for nighttime. So we have all these prayers. But honestly, I don't always have the half hour in the morning to sit down and do it. So oftentimes I just pull it up on my phone, and Forward Movement has an app. I pull up the app and just click play, and I have it playing next to me. And so then I can read along and I can do the responses while I'm getting dressed in the morning, while I'm fixing my hair, while I'm doing that. Or if the kids are there, then, sometimes they come in and start talking, so I have to pause it. And so sometimes I do it while I'm in the car. And yes, there is beauty in being able to give God our undivided attention, but at the same time, there's just such a special beauty of saying, okay, you know what, Jesus, hop in. We're gonna go for a drive.
Right. We got errands to run.
We have errands to run. So this reminds me, when I had 2 kids, maybe I was pregnant with my third. I was living in Colorado, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And I got bored, y'all, all the time. And I needed stimulation, right? I needed adult company. And so I had a good friend who lived around the corner who had a whole van full of kids. And so a lot of times I would walk over to her house around 2:30. We would put my kids in her car, in car seats with her. And she and I would run a few errands where we took turns running into stores. And then we would go do her carpool runs. And I just tagged along because I just needed that company, right? So I just hung out with her. I was able to fill my cup. I think it filled her cup too. I think she enjoyed it. We just kept giving the kids snacks, or a lot of times they'd fall asleep, in the back seat as we picked up the kids and things like that. And so it really was this special time. And I think that sometimes if you do have a drive or something, that's a great time to just connect with God. Occasionally I'll be listening to a podcast and I'll just start thinking about something and I'll turn off the podcast because I just want to think about it and kind of talk to God. And nobody really cares if you're talking to yourself in your car.
Yep.
You're not in the grocery store or anything. And so I love that time with God when we go driving around.
Yeah, it works. You find the time that makes sense in the season that you're in and just shake off any sort of thoughts about, is this right? Am I doing this right? Is this the best that I can do? You know what? It is. It is the best you can do right now. And God can take anything you're offering and turn it into something beautiful. So stop putting that pressure on yourself that, my prayer life has to look a certain way because I'm responsible for making it look a certain way. God's the one taking your prayers and doing with them what God will. And so just hand them over. And it's okay if they're not perfect. It's okay if they're in your car in between errands. It's okay if they're on your phone with kids interrupting. God's going to take those prayers regardless.
Yes. Yes. And then you can also, make other things prayers too. So you said connecting with each kid. Well, maybe your kids are teenagers and you barely see them because they like groggily wander to the bus stop in the
Mhm.
morning and then are like in their rooms, they come out for dinner and then like go back, do homework, and you're in bed before they are. But, like if I'm doing the dishes for the kid who says, "Oh, I'm too tired. I can't do the dishes." I can either do it and be annoyed at them or I can do it and pray for them.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to do it either way. So I might as well make something good out of
Right.
it. I mean, I guess not all the time I have to do it. Sometimes I make them do it the next. Sometimes I just decide, no, I'm not doing that. But if you're folding clothes, like, okay, like you can pray for each person as you do it. I think you've said before too, like as you're cooking a meal or even before eating, praying for all the people in that meal lineage.
Right. Everyone
Right.
involved in getting that food
Yes.
to you. Yes.
Yes. So, just kind of thinking about those different things. There are sometimes that I drive around and I just, I really feel so lucky. I don't want to say blessed because I feel like blessing is the joy that's inside me, right? Blessing is not my circumstances,
Mhm.
right? That's not God blessing me. That's just luck. When I see a mom in the heat, who's pregnant and pushing a stroller, walking across the street to go catch a bus, I just think of how lucky I am that I have a car
Mhm.
and I can drive around in it. And so I just, thank God for that. And then I ask God to help me keep that proper mindset and like, what can I do?
Right.
And I think it was after our discussion on Earth Day, I was so inspired, y'all, that I went to the sculpture garden
Yes.
in New Orleans, and I just like walked around there, and it was so peaceful. And it's much more peaceful than walking around like one of the walking tracks, because the walking tracks are nice, but there's just a lot of busyness and people are like really moving and everything. And in the sculpture garden, nobody's talking on their phones and it's
Mhm.
just super peaceful. And so they even have a labyrinth in there and stuff, like, so you can just really meditate and just bask in God's glory and have, what did you call it? A sky minute?
Sky break.
Sky breaks. Yes, yes, yes. So have those sky breaks. And those are great
Mhm.
times, like throughout the day too, to just kind of like reconnect with God. Like look up at the sky, realize this is so much bigger than me. All right, God, equip me here.
Right. Right. I'm here to do the work, but I also need to have the perspective of I'm not the only one doing the work, right? That I can only do what I can do, and that matters. But the weight of the world is not on my shoulders, even though it feels like it is in the month of May.
Right. Right. It definitely can feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
So back when I was in Colorado, clearly this was a very hard time for me. I probably had kids like your
Formative years.
all the little bitty kids. I had like 3 little, or I would like had the 2 and was pregnant. I remember sitting in, it's St. Mary's Church. It was a Catholic church in downtown Colorado Springs. So if anybody's ever there, there's a stained glass window and it was Jesus and little children. But y'all, it did not look like the typical, oh, let the little children come to me. No, instead, I swear this artist must have done it on purpose. It looked like Jesus was playing Ring Around the Rosie
Oh, that's great.
with the kids. Like 100%, that's what it looked like. And so it just took me a minute. I looked at it and then I just put myself in that scene, right? And this is a great way to pray. Like take an image, like any liturgical image, or even just a story that you think of from the Bible and just put yourself in it and just let your imagination flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am in it, and I'm sitting at a park and my kids are like, Mom, come play, come play, come play. And I'm so tired because at this point in time, I think I was big and pregnant. And I was like, you know what? Go play with Jesus. Jesus wants to play with you. and then, of course, his disciples are like, no, Jesus is too busy. He's not going to play with you. And Jesus looks at them and looks at me and says, let the little children come to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that idea of like, okay, all that stress of like the kids and stuff, yeah, go play with Jesus.
Mhm.
You've got it. You've got it. And it just brought me so much peace, even though, I mean, obviously, when I go to the park, Jesus, unfortunately, is not there. And if somebody comes up and says, hey, I'm Jesus, can I play with your kids? The answer is no.
Probably leaving the park.
Don't want them to do that. But just that mental ability to go, oh, okay, yeah, I can. Jesus cares about all these little bitty things,
Mhm.
and I can rely on him like that. So that's a really great way to pray, especially if you are super busy, is to just kind of let go and just let your imagination take you in one of the scriptures.
Yeah, one of my favorite days of the Jesus Calling devotional. It's April 1st, which always cracks me up. But it's the April 1st day, and part of it says, you yearn for a simplified lifestyle so that your communication with me can be uninterrupted. But I challenge you to relinquish the fantasy of an uncluttered world. Accept each day just as it comes and find me in the midst of it all. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to get at here, that you can't control May. You can't demystify May. You can't simplify May to the point that it feels like the rest of the year. You can take steps in that direction and simplify it as much as you can. And you absolutely should, through prioritizing and having some open communication about not being able to do it all. But when it comes right down to it, chances are if your kid's graduating, May is going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
You. And it just is what it is. But the idea of, instead of yearning for everything to be simple right now, live into the season you're in and find God in the midst of it all, because God is there. You find what you're looking for.
Yeah. I remember the first or the most important wisdom I was given before I got married was, somebody said, well, I have two really good ones, but one of them was about the wedding day, and it was just pray to be in the moment, because it's so easy for like any kind of big day to just like fly by, right? I have a daughter graduating. Oh, when's this airing? May 13th, this coming weekend, from Villanova. And so I'm taking my three little ones up, and we're going to do it. And one of my big prayers every day is just going to be like, God, let me be in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just enjoy it. Let me just soak it in. And let's just really all be in that moment and not worry about, oh, wait, we wanted to do this. Oh, we got to do this. But just being able to flow with it and to go with it, just, it makes life so much easier when you can do that.
It really does. And I think another element we can consider is, again, it doesn't all have to fall to us. It doesn't all have to come down to us. And so I think when you start thinking about your community and thinking about, like, if you're in a little circle of good news through a local church, or if you're associated with a church that has a youth minister dedicated to youth work, letting people know when those busy seasons are so that you can lean into them. Like, if somebody just lets a youth minister know, hey, you probably know this cognitively with common sense, that May is busy for families. But just to flesh it out for you a little bit, we have this great prayer life at home that is dependent on our routine, and it feels like it gets derailed in May. So on the days that we can be here, which may not be every day, but on the days that we can be here, if you could really help lean into praying with the kids, because it feels like that gets lost in the shuffle. People are looking for that. People are looking for ways to help serve. So if your youth minister knows May is crazy for families, I am just going to welcome these kids in and try to fill in the praying with them, connecting with them, because that's so hard in May. Also, I know I'm a broken record on this podcast with this, but leaning into the people who are not in the same season of life, but remember what it was like.
Oh, absolutely.
Those
absolutely.
people would love to step in and be supportive in the month of May, however they can.
You know, I've had, people from church who have come and shown up at my kids' like violin recitals. And it's just like, oh, wow, it meant so much. It meant so much to them. They're like, they want to come and hear it. What? Right. I don't understand. And it's that it just happened to work out, and it just really made it special.
Right.
For sure. So yeah, invite those people, invite them into your car too, right? So you got all the people in your car. You got Jesus in your car. You got your neighbors in your car. You got your friends in your car. Yeah. Oh, the other great piece of advice that I love was, if this was a Chevy Chase movie, it would be funny.
Oh, that's great.
And so some of you younger parents might not quite get that, but
That's great.
but always remember, if this was a Chevy Chase movie, it would be funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like no matter what is happening in your life, like, okay, you can laugh or you can cry, you know, how are you going to do it? And not to like bring it down, but at one point, so I uh lost a baby at 17 weeks,
Mm.
Gabriel, in between number 3 and number 4. And during that time, right, like I didn't even feel like praying. Like I didn't, right? Like how do you pray? How do
Right.
you pray when you're going through this travesty? Um, and so then the choice is, okay, laugh or cry, or really the choice is, you know, well, how can I not pray? Right. And, but then like, what words do I have? And so at that point in time, we were listening to tons and tons of VeggieTales. And so I had a VeggieTales Sunday morning sing along
Mm-hmm.
and, um, Blessed Be Your Name by Matt Redman. Matt Redman singing it with Larry,
That's great.
which was really sweet. But I just listened to that on repeat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a great song. That's just like giving it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when everything's great, blessed be your name. When everything's terrible, blessed be your name. And just being able to lean into that, right? Like, okay, either we're going to fall apart or we lean into God,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I think that that's important, even in the little things like the craziness of May, being able to lean into that and go, okay, I can fall apart or I
Mm-hmm.
can lean into God. Those are my choices.
Right.
So let me lean on him. He wants us to.
Right. And then again, another great opportunity for your community to show up. I mean, I think of difficult times in my life when I had a lot of trouble praying, just coming up with the words and not really feeling like I had words for some of the things that I needed to pray about, and being able to have good friends. I mean, my dearest friend, I could just text her and say, I can't even pray about this. And she's like, I've got you.
Yeah.
And have people pray for you. And then, of course, you return the favor. And that counts. And it builds community while you're in the midst of it.
You're like, that counts. That counts. That counts as prayer. Check.
That counts.
Check off.
Yeah. I mean, when we had Bishop Duckworth as a guest and we were talking about the community piece of the Episcopal Church and how in the baptismal
Right.
sacrament, the entire congregation is part of that, saying, we will with God's help. So give people a chance to be, we will with God's help. Give people the
Right.
chance, say, can you please pray for me? I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. I'm struggling to pray for myself. And people love to show up for you as a prayer partner. So just let people in a little bit, let them know. You don't have to, tell them the entire story start to finish, but just let them know, I'm struggling with something right now. I could really use your prayers. And people are so happy to show up in that way for you.
Right. And although we often joke about like, oh yeah, thoughts and prayers, they're really going to feed a bunch of people and things like that, they do something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some of it is just us. Mother Teresa said, I used to think that prayer changed things. And now I understand that prayer changes us and we
Mm-hmm.
change things, right? Prayer changes us. Prayer orients us towards God. It keeps us focused on what's important. And then, by asking other people to pray for us, then they're focusing and orienting towards God, right? And we are all connected, in this crazy world.
Mm-hmm.
We are all connected. And there have actually been some crazy studies that have shown that like one person thinking about someone and praying for someone in one city like actually like affected the MRI of somebody in another city.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
like I don't get into all that. I don't know about all that. I think that it is out there. I remember like reading about it. I'm like, what? Because somebody really wanted to know, are we really interconnected like that? But the reality is it helps keep us all more aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're asking someone to pray for you, and then they're going to not only be more aware of your situation, but then they're going to be more aware of other people's around them too.
Right.
And so then we're all able to help each other more.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make a difference.
Yeah. So, when May becomes a whirlwind of everything for the kids and that you can lose yourself.
Good news. you can find yourself again, and you can find ways to stay rooted as long as you set the bar really low. You do not need to aim for perfection here. Just aim for something every day. You can do it.
You can do it. You can do it with God's help, right?
Right,
We
exactly.
will with God's help. So that's the good news for today. Don't forget to get your own little box of good news on the website, littleboxofgoodnews.com. You can also find out everything else that we're doing on that website.
And be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube on all the channels. We are at Little Box of Good News.
See you next week.
See ya.
The Little Podcast of Good News is a ministry of the Little Box of Good News. The hosts are Lauren Dunn and Grace Rose. This podcast has been edited by Cyril Rose and is produced by the Episcopal Diocese of Louisiana. For more from the Episcopal Diocese of Louisiana, please visit us at edola.org.